My sister wants to adopt a teenager to use them as a free maid. So this is a throwaway account. While my sister doesn't use Reddit, we have mutual friends who do. I'm a 28F and I have a sister, 36F. For the sake of story, I'll just call Jane. Jane is married to Bob and they have 2 kids, boy and a girl. My niece and nephew are wonderful kids and no trouble at all. They fight as siblings do, but nothing big. I love them. Now, for about 2 years, I did live with my sister. It was a miserable time that really affected our relationship. She saw me as free labor, money, and babysitting. Even when I managed to get a small part-time job, she demanded I hand over nearly half my pay or get out. It was hell as she took completely advantage of me. I moved out as soon as I could, and we have little contact outside of family gatherings. Now, after I moved out, she started complaining how she has no help with the kids and never gets a break. I babysit sometimes, but I have made it clear just because I am off work doesn't mean I want an 8-hour day with my niece and nephew. Anyway, she started talking about how she wanted to foster a kid. Not a kid, but a teenager. I pressed her for more info on this. She wants to adopt a teenager, so she has a live-in babysitter for her kids. This is her logic. I want a kid around 16 or 17, someone who may have been in the system for a while. They can share a room with your nephew. She only has a 3-bedroom house, or sleep in the garage. They can help me with housework, chores, cook, and help me with my business. She bakes and sells cookies. Also babysit the kids so me and Bob can go out sometimes or have some alone time. They'll be so grateful for a home and won't complain. I won't have to pay them at all. And then when they turn 18, I can just sign up for another foster kid. A teenager will be so much easier than a little kid. They will be grateful just to have a roof, food, siblings if they have been separated from their real ones, and clothes. I was horrified. Told her it was a horrible idea. She didn't listen to me. She went on with it anyway. About a month ago, a social worker showed up at my apartment to ask me some questions about my sister. She had put me down as a character witness or something like that. I immediately told the social worker why my sister really wanted to foster a kid and how she treated me when I lived with her. The lady thanked me. My sister called crying, saying that she wouldn't be considered for any adoptions or fosters. The social worker told her that they felt her home and her weren't a good fit. She asked if I said anything, and I told the truth. She went off on me, hung up, and we haven't spoken since. She has sent some angry texts. A couple family members are on her side. They think foster kids are freaking dogs or something and would be so happy just to have a roof and would gladly do all the housework. So am I the a-hole here? Edit. So wow, I didn't know my post blew up like this till I got home from work. Thank you everyone for the kind words, messages, and awards. Remember, no child is in control of the circumstances that may have landed them in the foster care system. They are children and still human. They deserve a loving home and care. Do right by a foster kid. And thank you again. Feel free to message me or chat if you like. Response 1, NTA. You told the truth and saved a teenager from a terrible life of being used and dumped for another, which is no way to treat anyone. It is a foster child, not a slave. Reply 1, I said that, but her logic is, it's not slavery. I'm giving them a home, food, clothes, and everything else. Yeah, and making them watch your kids 8 hours a day, cook dinner, and do everything you are feeling too effing lazy to do because life is hard. Reply 2, I was especially bothered by the, when they turn 18, I'll sign up for other adoption. People aren't disposable like that. You adopt because you want to give someone a home, a family, a life. Not to give them an unpaid position as a maid, chef, and caretaker. You did the right thing. Reply 3. Does she think slaves weren't housed and fed? Because they absolutely were, and what your sister was trying to do was absolutely abhorrent. Thank you for protecting some poor kid from her. Reply 4. Technically, the state would have given them food and clothes and such. There is a monthly stipend that comes with foster kids that is supposed to go to that kind of thing. Reply 5. It's not that much. One of my coworkers and his wife are foster parents. The money received is in no way enough to cover the expenses. Response 2. NTA. Kids aren't slaves and shouldn't be treated as such. I'm glad you got out of living with your sister, because she sounds difficult to live with, and you absolutely did the right thing to prevent a child from being treated like you did. Reply 1. She was very difficult to live with. My first job only paid me $400 at best sometimes, and she would demand $350 in rent or get out. She would walk around naked, don't want to see my sister naked, walk into my room and take my stuff, lose it, and then not replace, because it was in my house. Once I woke up to my nephew asking when I was going to make breakfast. My sister and Bob were gone. They left for a weekend and left me with the kids. I started drinking pretty heavy just to deal with the stress, and even slept in my car sometimes so I wouldn't go home. It got so bad that I had a system of climbing in and out my window to avoid her. Reply 2. Holy, and she wants to try and trap a foster kid in that mess? She's seriously twisted, and I'm sorry you and her kids have to put up with her at all. Reply 3. Well, no. She wants a teenager to work for her for a year or two and then toss them when they turn 18 just to get another one. All while she's also collecting a check from the government. Reply 4. Shocked that she would list you as a character reference after all that. The narcissism shows no bounds. Reply 5. Because she doesn't think she's doing anything wrong. Thankfully, OP already did what needed to be done. They've already rejected her, and it's not like she can just fill out the application again with a new character witness instead to improve her chances of getting approved. At least, I hope not. I imagine if she submitted a new application, they'd see she was already rejected once and look into why that was. Response 3, NTA. What you did was the only ethical option. Not only is this treating another human being like a literal house slave, and a disposable one at that, but older fosters tend to have been through a horrifying amount of abuse. That means they often need a lot of help themselves. Honestly, the plan to have him live in the same room as the younger children is generally not allowed for that exact reason. It's incredibly common for sexually abused children to repeat the behavior to other children because they don't know better, and it's been normalized. And I'm guessing the garage plan wasn't even mentioned to the social worker because that is right out. Older foster children are generally harder to place exactly because they generally need so much work, but all your sister sees is free labor. Unless she somehow lucks out with actual Cinderella, her flippant plan is not only cruel, but exposing her own children to potential physical and sexual abuse, drugs, whatever horrible things the foster child had to do to survive. Also, I'd extremely not trust any family member that is on her side. You shouldn't be celebrated by adopting a child for your own gain. This is just a genteel version of Victorian men scooping up orphans and forcing them to work as chimney sweeps and coal miners, then discarding them when they get too big to do the work. Reply 1. This is why my pipe dream is to one day own a small hobby farm where I can just shelter foster teens and senior dogs. I don't know that I ever really want to be a parent, per se, but I'd like to be a safe spot people can call home. Somewhere that even if that were only there for a couple months, they know the door is always open if they need a place to rest. Reply 2. My mom has had a very similar dream for as long as I can remember. Even if it never happens, if you spend each day with that kind of compassion, the world will be a better place for you being in it. Reply 3. Thank you, that's very sweet. That's the philosophy I'm trying to push. Anyway, that even if we can't do much on a large scale, there's no reason why we shouldn't stomp around in our own little patch of grass to make it a good place to live. Everything ripples outward. Response 4. Inta! Too many foster kids end up in homes like that, and it's disgusting. People should only take in a kid if they're willing to treat them like their own kid and provide a loving and fun home. You absolutely did the right thing, saving a kid from being subjected to being a maid and nanny. Reply 1. 70% of prison inmates were in foster care at some point, and 80% of death row inmates. 95% of foster children don't graduate from college. They need better homes. FOP's sister. Response 5. Holy carp, not the a-hole. My husband and I have talked about adopting teenagers. The first thing we talked about was that we weren't asking them to babysit. It's not their job, and foster kids have gone through so much. Making them a live-in unpaid nanny is just disgusting, and your sister should be ashamed of herself. Reply 1. My husband and I have discussed this as well. He's adopted, and I was a foster child for a few years. We've wanted to do this simply because we come from very small families and don't want any more biological children of our own. Extending our familial circle while simultaneously giving a child a family to finally call their own would be amazing. Response 6. NTA. I'm so tired of people using the foster care system for their own narcissistic needs. Usually it's money, in this case, it's labor. Just as bad as people who have more children just so they can take care of their siblings, etc. You absolutely did the right thing in making sure no foster kid ever goes into that abusing household. Response 7. NTA, your sister sounds horrible. A foster child doesn't need a roof over their head. They need a family to love, then not to be treated as a slave. You did the right thing. Reply 1. NTA, what she is looking for is an au pair. You pay them to look after your children whilst they live with you and learn English. You don't take on a vulnerable teenager to exploit them further. Well done, OP. Response 8. NTA. Not only did you do the right thing for any foster kids who might have ended up in that situation, you actually also did the right thing for your sis and nibblings. There are some amazing, wonderful, awesome kids in the foster system, and there are also a lot of really badly damaged kids that need a lot of love, counseling, and time before they'd be a person you'd want to entrust babysitting to. Your sis could have received one of the rare ones who's a perfect, caring angel from a loving home who's just been recently orphaned and so grateful that she has a new home, that she happily scrubs the floors and does whatever chores are asked. Or, and more likely, she could get a kid who was badly abused by first her parents, then a series of foster families and other foster kids, who has extensive psychological issues from this, and who brings drugs and other crime into the house, all while abusing your young niece and nephew and being just generally horrible to be around. These kids need love, patience, and treatment that your sis was obviously not prepared to give, so it would have been an awful situation for everybody. Reply 1. I'm actually in the process of foster to adopt, and I'm mind blown by this plan. I would never trust a new foster child to babysit anyone. It's not fair to the new kid, the bio kids, or anyone really. Putting the trust issue aside, the kid is also going through some carp and doesn't need the responsibility. Also, they were going to put him/her in the garage? What the hell? Response 9. Of course you're not the a-hole, but you knew that already. So, here's your pat on the back. I hope you feel better. Response 10. How would your sister even qualify for either adoption or foster? There are guidelines about things like how much space must be available and number of bedrooms. Not the a-hole, although it was a really close call since the only reason you told her was to cause drama. There was no reason to tell, and no one was ever going to find out why she was declined. The goal was to protect a vulnerable child. You already had succeeded. Now, if she tries another tactic, she won't use you as a reference, and she may successfully follow through with another crazy scheme. Response 11. NTA. Personally, I would question her ethics as a parent and how she perceives her biological children as well. Does she only see them as a burden? What will happen to them when they are old enough to take on chores? Will they be inundated with unpaid labor? When they get a job, will they be expected to turn in all their wages? Does she actually care for these children? One form of abuse is neglect, and if these children are being deprived of love, affection, care, attention, then that can constitute abuse. I would be very wary, given her attitude towards other children and her remarks around her own. But if social services need to be made aware of her treatment of her own children as well, then it should be done for the sake of the children. Reply 1. My best guess is my sister regrets having kids. Like I said, my niece and nephew are no trouble. But now she sees that she can't do everything she did her teens and 20s because she has 2 small children. She is constantly pawning them off on me or other family members. Not to knock stay-at-home moms, but she doesn't do anything. She has a small cookie-selling business, and she acts like it takes all her time and that her kid's asking for the basic attention of "Mom, look what I did." is just too much trouble. One of those moms who post the blessed family all over Facebook with their perfect family. Response 12. I was a social worker. You are not the a-hole and did the right thing. Your information is probably not the only reason she was turned down. Here, a foster child needs their own bedroom. Response 13. Omj, not the a-hole. Your sister is straight up trippin'. People who think like this should not even have kids, biological or not. The notion of exploiting a kid for free labor and thinking it's okay because they won't complain and at least they will have a roof over their head is beyond me. Hopefully there's a note in her record so that she can never qualify for fostering. She probably didn't think you'd have the courage to tell the truth to the social worker. That, or she's completely blind to how she treated you and how that has impacted how you view her. Either way, she is bonkers. Reply 1. She likely thought I wouldn't say anything because I can be pretty quiet. She is blind to how she treats others and doesn't care normally when you confront her. She'll just gaslight the hell out of you. Reply 2. Have you considered calling CPS on her? She left her own children hungry and unattended to go on a trip without telling you. That's incredibly callous as well. She shouldn't be anywhere near children. Has she always been a narcissistic sociopath? I don't use those words lightly, but something is deeply wrong with her. Response 4TA. Bravo, you saved a child from the hell that is your sister. Foster children are not meant to be slaves. Response 15. Your sister didn't want to give a kid close to aging out a loving family. She wanted a effing slave, not the a-hole. She put you down as a character reference. It's not your fault. Her character is Carp. You saved some poor kid from being exploited to heck and back. If she wants a live-in babysitter, she can hire a nanny or au pair. Response 16. NTA. It sounds like your sister has been reading too much Anne of Green Gables or something. They can share a room with your nephew or sleep in the garage. I think this bit alone would have disqualified her. If I recall correctly, the foster child has to have their own proper room. Sharing a bedroom with another child or sleeping in the garage wouldn't have been allowed. That's what I was told by a few family friends that were looking to foster. Response 7. Defiantly not the a-hole. Thank you for being honest with the social worker. Your sister is very obviously a terrible person who has no business having other children being placed in her care. How other family members could be on her side baffles me. They are despicable people. NTA. Your sister belongs in a doghouse if she was trying to adopt a teenager just for labor purposes. All those kids need to get taken away from her because they're just going to become her puppets once they become teenagers. Response 9TA. And thank you for doing what you did. Foster kids need love, attention, and the proper care, something your sister is incapable of providing. She sounds really cruel, trying to use a child that has been through so much already as free labor. Response 20. NTA. As a previous foster kid, this post made me sick to my stomach. I aged out of the system, and my last placement, I was 17 years old. You are incredible and amazing for telling the worker how it is. Thank you so much for speaking out. Getting an older foster kid when you have younger biological children is problematic in the best of situations, let alone in which they would be regulated to childcare. Children that are abused can end up abusing other children. Not only did you help an unknown child, you helped your niece and nephew. Way to be.